What's necessary to extend? These exceptions. Vegetarian. The National Assembly today gave an accelerated consideration and extended the timeline for the implementation of the 2023 Supplementary Appropriation Act to June 30, 2024. Recall that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu transmitted a letter to the House of Representatives seeking to extend the implementation of the 2023 Supplementary Appropriation Act from March 31 to June 30, 2024. Similar letter was also sent by the President a couple of months ago and to the National Assembly, and it was granted. The Senate Majority Leader, Senator Kwemi Bamidele, earlier remarked that the extension of the supplementary budget timeline was necessary as it will empower all ministries, departments and agencies of the federal government that received allocation in the budget to complete the execution of their projects before starting new ones. Now the President is asking for another extension of budget implementation, which has also been granted by the National Assembly. How will this be implemented? This is the crux of the matter tonight. Thanks for joining us. I am Ikeria Clinton. Welcome. Joining us to dissect the issue is an investment and financial analyst, and is also a public affairs commentator, Niyi Akinshiju. You're welcome to Nigeria today. Also joining us in the studio is a political economist and a development researcher, Adefolari Olamilekan. You're welcome to Nigeria today.
Thanks for having me.
So I'll start with you, Niyi. What is you had, of course, the issue we're talking about. What is your perception about this extension of the budget implementation timeline?
Well, I think it's been practical. And of course, it also would raise some concern in terms of processes. Principally, the request for extension and of course the granting of extension are predicated on the lag between passage of the act and disbursement of funds. So you have what is apparent now is that we have challenges with our procurement process. Our procurement processes are very slow. So it is one thing to have a budget passed into law. It is another thing to crystallize, especially the capital components of the budgets, because of the fairly, perhaps inequitably long time it will take to realize those capital items in the budget. So that is why first you have the President requested for the budget, the supplementary budget, to be extended from December ending 2023 to March 31. In the realization that here we are, March 31 is just is knocking on the door, and of course we have not achieved the possible realization of the items. There is a need to also now extend. So the extension is good because, of course, it means that all the item aids provided for will be realized, and that there are some projects already that are near completion. If there was no extension, as it were, it would challenge those projects because they were not provided for in the 2024 budget. So the long and short of it is do not close the books yet. Keep the books open so that it can continue to fund the realization of these items.
So, Adefulani, I also want to have your own view on these extension. You know, what could have been the possible setbacks?
I think understanding these particular processes will take us back to why do we normally have a supplementary budget? Why do we normally call for extension? Take us back to 1999. You know, from that period, the modest history of our budgeting process have exposed us to understanding that there will always be a call for extension. There will always be a call for appropriation budget, which means that by the time we fix a particular money for a particular year, we will discover that that money will not be enough as a result of three things. One, short in revenue. Two, just like Mr. Nia have pointed out, the procurement processes are quite slow, are not transparent enough, and they're having challenges. Then the third thing is the aspect of disbursement from the head ministry that normally release money for those agencies. So with these three factors I've mentioned, definitely there will be need for appropriation, there will also be need for extension. But what we may not actually be able to comprehend that will call for concern in this particular extension is this. Mr. Ni pointed out something that maybe they want the books to be open before the new budget being implemented. But the issue still remains that most of the capital project has been existing for many years and they have not been completed. And I also find it so intriguing that most of those capital projects that he pointed out right now are also captured in the 2024 budget. So what would the government be able to achieve with this extension? Well, for me, what I've discovered in the budget system is that agencies and NTAs are now prioritizing capital projects in terms of the disbursement that comes to them. So by March 31st, that is just some few days from now, and the extension that the president have called for, will they still be able to meet up with that, even with the prioritization of some of the capital projects they are putting in place altogether in this current dispensation? Okay.
Now, having had that, of course, you said quite a lot of reason why the extension will be. So tell us, are there consequences or potential consequences if the extension is not, given, or if there's no extension of the implementation of the budget?
The budget is an act. That's why it's called Appropriation Act.
Yes.
To that extent, it means that you cannot subtract nor add to it without approaching the National Assembly. So it must be amended to align with the outlook.
No, the reason why I'm asking this is, like Adefulani rightly mentioned, is that some of these capital projects are captured in the 2024 budget.
Anyway, that is open to debate. But what the Senate leader argued was that all the items, all the projects captured in the 2023 supplementary budget are not replicated in the 2024 budget. So to that extent, we want to assume that if anything happens to the supplementary budget, as it were, it will mean a stoppage of funding for those items in 2023 appropriation, supplementary appropriation act, as it were. So the reason for the president to request the National Assembly to keep it open, keep the budget open, is to be able to continue to fund this project. It is said that there's a challenge with disbursement, and in truth, there's a challenge in disbursement. First, in terms of quantum of funds available per term. When they receive fund too, there are some ministries that even their own internal processes are quite slow. You have issues with disbursement, what you call cash backing, from the CBN to the MDAs, from the MDAs to the contractors and all that. Sometimes our procurement cycle could go as high as 8 months. And in fact, even the percentage fund that is availed the contractors sometimes may be too small to even provide any form of consequence in terms of when you move to the field or when you move to the site. So the important thing now is that realization, because capital projects, as I always say, is the wholesome, wholesale, impactful harm of the budget on the Nigerian people. And we have seen over time that there's always that insistence on 100% realization of the recurrent. You know, so where you have 100% realization of the recurrent within the 12 months period, you have, even where the capital budget is just about 30, maximum 35% of the budget, you have that performing less than 60%. And by the time you close the books on that 60%, it means that the 40% of the capital projects will not be realized. And it will have consequences on the economy as it were, because that is where you have the capital, the fund, circulating within the economy. So I think this is good, and it's not the first time. We had the same thing in the 2022 supplementary budget too. You know, it was extended even up till the third quarter of 2023. And the insistence is, once you have the capital budget, it's important that as much as possible it is driven for us to achieve close to 100%, you know, funding. I believe that the 2024 budget would perform much better, because we can see the quantum of fund that the FAC, you know, is sharing every month. So fund may not be a major challenge this time. Okay.
Now, Olamileko, how can the budget implementation extension lead to improved fiscal management?
I think it's quite a very sensitive question you asked. How could it lead to fiscal management? You know, one of the key
improved
fiscal management. Yeah. One of the key points in terms of ensuring fiscal management is to ensure that, one, there is transparency in the disbursement. Two, the MDAs are also prioritizing ways of ensuring that our books are open for intervention, for interrogation, and also for oversight. And the third aspect is that we ensure that when, particularly the capital project, as Mr. Nia has pointed out, is the germane of budget system. If it doesn't work well, the economy will not work well. And if you are talking about the fiscal balance in our economy or fiscal management, that is where it comes from. Because it is that aspect of the budget that the private sector or the organized private sector are waiting for. So if we are to ensure that fiscal management to happen, then we must ensure transparency and accountability and responsibility on the part of the MDAs, as well as the disbursement agency, the CBN and the Ministry of Finance. Then altogether, we also need to understand that when it comes to budgeting processes, it's not more an academic exercise or presentation. It has to do with the real work of the economy, whereby we ensure that every kobo that we are spending is coming out on the realist side, just like Mr. Lee pointed out. If it doesn't show that reality in terms of what is happening to everyday Nigerian, that means the budget has not worked. And there is no way we can really point to the transparency of the fiscal management that we're talking about, because the moment there is no fiscal management, there will be fiscal imbalances. And that's when government will begin to go into borrowing, because the end product of poor fiscal management would lead to more borrowing that will also affect the economy on a long term, just like we have experienced in the past. We just hope in 2024 budget we can have a cut of such excesses in our budgeting system.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is still Nigeria Today. We'll take a short break now and listen to a clip of reactions from National Assembly. Please don't go away.
These extensions are necessary to ensure that the provisions of the Acts are exhaustively implemented. While looking forward to the usual expeditious consideration of the Senate, please accept, distinguished Senate President, distinguished senators, the assurances of my highest consideration. Yours sincerely, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Welcome back. This is still Nigeria Today. That was the Senate President there, Gospel Akpabio. And we are still looking at the extension of the budget implementation timeline. I have here with me two gentlemen. And you heard, of course, what the Senate President, it was really not the letter as written by the President. Now, what strategies can government employ to ensure effective utilization of the extended period?
It's to come to the realization of the challenges, as it were. It's not a new challenge, as it were. We have always believed and realized that our procurement processes had always been slow. Then there are issues of transparency. And even in the slowness of these processes, you also have the issue of verification and validations, which are germane, which will be the foundation, to any procurement process. Today, you still have, despite the provision or the requirement for pre-qualification, you still have companies that do not have traceable addresses, and they are bidding for billions of naira worth of contracts. When you have such a company secure a project, the construction or the realization of a project like that, what it tells you is that eventually that project is not going to be delivered. So and it becomes jeopardy. One, funds are wasted, resources are wasted, and the consequences that are required in the economy are not felt. So to a large extent, I think it's about looking at the procurement processes, looking at the disbursement processes, and of course looking at the exit points. And for me, it is applying all the nuances of project management. And we keep telling people, you don't need to go through the 4 walls of the university to understand what project management is. Once you understand the fact of the A to Z of a project, it means that once you are awarded, once you have a project to offer to the public or to deliver to the public, you must also know that at this point in time, you must deliver to the public. There is a misalignment between project conceptualization and project delivery, in the Nigerian ecosystem. And it's not just about the federal government alone. It goes through, it's even worse at the subnational levels, So in doing this extension, I would want the Federal Ministry of Finance, to have a more monitoring oversight. The budget department too have a more monitoring oversight. And of course the National Assembly to be up and doing. The general belief is that the committee, the National Assembly is shared, how do I call it? They have committees that conduct oversight with relevant MDAs. But there's a general belief that they also do that to aggrandize themselves. And in doing that, you shortchange the Nigerian people, So perhaps the need for that orientation to have the Nigerian people first, understanding the fact that when you deliver on this, it will have a circular multiplier effect on the Nigerian people. No matter how small a project is, even if it's a 1 kilometer road, it will definitely create new opportunities and enhance standard of living within that community.
Okay, now, Adefolari, earlier, Neyi had mentioned that there are lags here and there, delays here and there, which of course called for the extension of the deadline. Now, what can be done to, ensure that we meet up with our deadlines? You rightly said that even the deadline, you are not too sure that certain things will be completed before or on or before this new time deadline.
Very well. I love what Mr. Neyi pointed out. He said the conception of some of those projects. For me, most of the projects were concepted in elite mindset, in a sense that most of them are the bottom Nigerian kind of mindset, in a sense the people at the bottom level. Apart from road construction, if we have the opportunity to look at the extension of the budget timeline and the projects that are conceived in it, the most best of them for the Nigerians are the roads. The ones that are building town hall, the ones that are installing street light, the ones that are building other infrastructure. How connected is it to the Nigerian people? You get it? We need to interrogate that. Now, as you rightly pointed out your question, so how best can we ensure that this is done in a way that we can have value for money? Because the essence of this extension by June is that we must have value for money. And as Mr. Neyi rightly pointed out, if people don't understand the meaning of budget monitoring or budget formulation and the rest of them, or project supervision, there will be a challenge. So he has called on the National Assembly, he has called on the Minister of Finance, he has called on all the MDAs. For me, I want to call on the media to also have opportunity to look at this extension and be able to report to Nigerians what is really happening within the timeline and the items of those budgets, that because of certain budget is the reason why we are extending this, so that we can capture them and have value for money. But if it is not done that way, nothing can be achieved within the space of this extension. But we just hope that with anticipation that we can achieve something. Then again, I think the president is quite benevolent in ensuring that all aspects of the budget can be well captured and delivered. But we just hope that the civil servant, the public servant, the contractors are engaged. I really love the way Mr. Nee pointed out the issue of procurement, because the procurement challenge that we have is between the civil servant and the contractors that are handling it. If most of them have the clarion call to be patriotic enough, we won't be having this extension of budgeting problem that we're having. Rather, we have budget proposed for something, and at the end of the day, we have the money expended for it, and we have value for money in this case that we are discussing right now.
Okay, now, how can governments balance the need for flexibility with the importance of adhering to budgetary timelines?
Well, I think there's still a need to start the democratization of the budgeting process, so that we don't start talking into the air. The reality is that since independence, we've had, just like Lincoln noted, we've had an elitist kind of approach or attitude to budgeting. Budget is about projected expenditure with the mindset of impacting the people. So the people is at the heart of a budget. So there should be, yes, we know there's a public hearing by the National Assembly, but even some of us, you'll find it difficult to enter the National Assembly to go and do public hearing, So I think there's a need to start taking the good intentions around the budget to the people, meet the people where they are, so that from day one, the people who contribute to the conceptualization of a project can start honing that project from that point. And in doing that, it means that you have galvanized and triggered the interest of people to start monitoring. And you can also have people's reportage, people's feedback. So this way, the government is always informed, and you have stakeholders. The people now develop what you call a stakeholder sense or mentality around the projects. So it does now belong to the people in the real sense of it. So it's not just a federal government budget or a state government budget. It's the budget of the people of the Nigerian states.
And one last thing, 30 seconds. So what role does transparency and accountability play in the extension of, budget implementation periods?
For me as a political economist, I look out for the opportunity that we can have, or we can limit physical imbalances. Because the essence of this extension is to give value for money. If the extension is not giving, then there will be a challenge. Mr. Lee pointed out something very key that we all must take home. That is procurement and disbursement, which I also emphasize. But physical imbalances normally happen when we continue to disburse money and there's no value for the money. And that's where the problem of transparency comes in. So how should we ensure transparency in all this chain of budgeting processes in Nigeria? And as the President has said, they want project completed, but how would they have project completed without transparency? I hope the National Assembly can help us out with oversight function.
Well, thank you very much. With that, we'll wrap up today's episode of Nigeria Today. I've been speaking with the investment and financial analyst and also a public affairs commentator, Nee Akinshiju. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. So and also a political economist and a development researcher at Defolari Olamilekan. Thank you so much for your thoughts.
Thank you for
your time. And thank you for being part of the program. Don't forget, Nigeria Today airs weekday at 7:30 p.m. on NTA News 24. You can also check out these episodes and other episodes on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. Once again, thank you for watching. I am Ikaria Clinton. Bye for now.